Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. Grab yourself a cup of coffee here and hang out for a little bit. We're going to talk about some things today. Here I've made a change of plan on some stuff, but before we get into all of that, let's cover our diecast of the day, shall we? Today, we have the 1959 Chevy Impala. I have both the hardtop and the convertible version of it. These cars were made by Johnny Lightning instead of Hot Wheels. I know that they've been around probably almost as long. I have no idea why they haven't really been as popular advertising-wise or anything else, and possibly because they were a little bit more expensive in the day, but if you take a look at these, they are so much more detailed than the Hot Wheels cars are, unless it was some special edition. They have all the finish work is done to that. I mean, take a look at that. It's got centerline rims on it. All the tail lights have been done. Even the engine inside here, let me see if I can get a little bit of light on that. The engine inside here has had a little bit of detailing already done to it. Here's the convertible version of it. It's got 5-spoke Krager rims on it. They even took and flipped up the visors here on these cars and put everything together. The engine's not quite as detailed on it, but all the finish work has been done to everything. And I think that they're just really cool little cars if you're adding to your collection. And just wanted to show these off today. That's the 1959 Chevy Impala. My father-in-law actually had the convertible in red back in the day. I wish I could have seen it up close. But anyway, let's get these guys out the way right here, and we're going to get into it. First, an announcement. Yesterday, I had put out my video about the 1967 Pontiac GTO that I was going to build for this right here as to start off with. And yesterday my wife had an appointment in Lakeland, so we took a ride out there, and we're talking on the road as we're going along, and she said, you know, it's too bad you don't have an old car that you could practice your techniques on. Let me remind y'all, it's probably been 25, 30 years since the last time I actually built a model car. And I tend to agree with her. I hate to turn a car as pretty as a GTO into a pile of junk. So I wanted something I could practice on that was a little bit better, more to my speed as far as what I'm going to be building and all. So the GTO is going to go on hold for a little bit right here, and I've changed direction on this somewhat, and we stopped at Hobby Lobby on the way home and got to looking around in there, and I found the car that's probably going to be more my speed to begin with until I improve on my modeling skills. I found the 34 Slammer modified dirt track race car. Now, this one here is not going to have all the pretty chrome on it. It's not going to be fancy or anything like that, but it'll give me a chance to work on my detailing skills and all, and it'll be more my speed. And besides, it's a dirt track car, so it ain't going to be pretty. And that way I can kind of like get by with some of the stuff that I tend to screw up. So, anyway, the GTO will be built eventually, but I'm going to work on my practice and my modeling skills with the dirt track modified car. Okay, so now that announcement is out of the way, we're going to get into the meat of today's video. We're going to RC this time. Back in 1985, I was walking through the mall. I was barely 21 years old, and I was walking through the mall and walked past a KB Toys, and they had displays up in the front window, and I saw the word kit on the side of a box. So I stopped in and went to look, and went in and talked to the guy and found out that these radio control cars were in kits and you build them. Okay, my eyes lit up. Okay, I love to build, even more so than actually running the cars. But went in there and they had car kits. They had, the guy shows me, oh, you can get replacement parts for them, and we got some upgrade parts. And I turn around and look, and there's chrome rims, there's anodized aluminum Nerf bars, and better shocks, and faster motors, and everything. And that seemed to be the thing. So I walked out of there with budget allowed, which was the cheapest little RC car I could ever come up with, and bought this, and I had a ball with it for about the next 8 months, building and customizing, fixing it up and everything. Had a good time with it. I discovered that there was organized racing. So a buddy of mine and I, we go down to the racetrack and took a look at it, and oh my God, it was an indoor dirt oval. I've always been a circle track fanatic, and here was dirt oval cars. He goes out and buys his car. The next day, we sat down, we got his car built and all, and we go racing. More importantly, I discovered the car that I should have had already from the beginning of it. I want to present the 1984 Associated RC10. This car revolutionized radio control. Back in the day, radio control cars were pretty much, I don't want to offend the pan car guys out there, but basically they were just a board with wheels on it. They ran on parking lot tracks. They had 8 scale cars, which were a little bigger than this, and they were nitro powered with engines. They had the 12 scale, which was a little smaller than this one. Pan cars, they were electric, and they ran those on parking lot tracks, and they set them up and run that. Well, the powers, the radio control dirt cars were basically primitive, I guess you could say, at the time, and everybody would still run them, race them, and build them up, and all. Some were better than others, but the powers that be in the racing world of RC decided that, hey, we've got championships for all of these for these pan cars. Why don't we start a world championships for dirt track cars? Well, a company called Associated Electrics, who were around since 1964, they got their start in slot cars, and then they were building some of these pan cars that people were running on the parking lot tracks. They got wind of this and decided to build a car for these world championship runs. And they got together, put all their information, their design, everything else, and put it together and came up with the RC10. This car dominated. And what they ended up doing, they released this car out, and the popularity of RC just exploded at that time. This was in 1984. Everybody and their brother made parts for these cars. They had everything you could imagine, different brackets, linkages, tires, wheels. They come up with graphite chassis. They had conversion kits for them. You could build sprint cars out of these. You could put trailing arms on here. They even had a 4-wheel drive kit that ran a cable up to the front that was kind of like an old bicycle speedometer cable. But overall, this car revolutionized RC. And we're going to get into this. Now, this one is not like a brand new one that you would get out of the box. I have since modified this car somewhat here and turned it into a street or an asphalt modified car instead. But more into that later. We're going to get into this right now. This is the chassis of this car. Basically what you would get when you bought a brand new one as a rolling chassis kit. Everything came in bags of parts, and you built the car from the ground up. This one I've changed, like I said, I've got short shocks on it, both all the way around, and I changed it over to F1 wheels simply because they look cool. And I run this on the street. It's been upgraded since it originally came out because for modern running equipment that's on it. But we'll take a look in here. This has full oil coilover shocks that goes on it, full independent suspension, multiple mounting points for your cambers and your caster shock angles that come on it. Yeah, T6061. Let me do that again. A T6061 aluminum chassis, 6-gear transmission in the back of it. I'd have to break that out just to show you what I'm talking about a little bit. Here is basically interior gear parts that's on here. These are the outdrive gears. There's a pair of idler gears that fits on here that runs, and then your top shaft that goes on with a slipper. It was all bearing driven with a thrust bearing, so they call this the 6-gear. This was where your spur gear goes here on the outside of it, and then it's got 2, and then 2 idlers, and then the 2 outdrives. Thus what they called a 6-gear transmission. This car was fixed up to run everything back in the day. Now everybody tries to push a car saying it's a specialty machine and all of that. And yes, they do have some specialty things, but in general, this car turned everything around. You go to the track on a race night and there would be 50 cars would show up, and probably 45 of them were RC10s, and they were all different in one way or another. This has been highly modified, like I said, from what it was to begin with, but you get the basic gist of the layout on here. I have had to do a few things, like since this car is 41 years old now, and parts were kind of a premium on it for a while, I went and looked and I couldn't get a battery tray, so I cut this one. I got some standoffs, male, female 440 standoffs to go in it, and I cut my own brackets here out of G10 fiberglass. So instead of the battery cup that comes on the car, this one is kind of handmade, but you kind of get the idea here. And I should have been just a little bit better prepared for this. But the battery pack would go in here, flips around right here, and then put the screw on it. Now, they have released new ones over the years. I guess you want to call it a re-release, and they're very similar, and the parts will interchange with them, but this is the original car. And since then, yeah, parts have become a little better as far as trying to find some things on here, but I kind of like the industrial look of this, and it's a runner anyway. But this is the car that started it all, the 1984 Associated RC10. And then over the years, they have changed the car a bunch, and they've come out with different versions and everything, and they started changing a lot of stuff. But I've always been a fanatic about this just because of the simplicity, the durability of this car, and so much that you can do with it. Show you another version right here. This is my chauffeur. This is also the RC10. It is been a rebuilt job from a while back, and it's more in line to what the car used to be back in the day, but it has had some modifications done to it and all, and we'll get into this one here next. The paint job on this car is just a simple rattle can job. Unlike model cars, these are come in polycarbonate bodies, or what they call Lexan. They come clear, and you actually paint them from the inside. So my paint jobs have always been just rattle cans, And so what I've done here was mask this off, did a simple rattle can paint job on it in black. Now this one I managed to cut the windows out of, if you look, and I put some netting in on the sides of the windows just to kind of detail it a little bit more. The decals and everything on it was all handmade off of a Cricut vinyl cutter, which we'll do a video on sometime down the road here just to give you an idea of how they work and something that you could possibly use for your own benefit. But this is the paint job on it. I made a mention about the buddy of mine that went to the track with, and we got his car built and everything. He passed away a few years ago. We've been friends for probably over 30 years, and he's going to be sorely missed. But this body is a tribute to him. And I got everything all done up here. So let's take a look at this one. This car was rebuilt. It all has original pieces on it. The parts came in white, and you could dye them with RIT dye. You make up that liquid RIT dye and drop your parts in there and put them on a slow simmer for a couple of hours, and they come out nice and black, or whatever color that you want to do. I've seen them done up in blue and red and green and everything else in the world. This car has a brushed motor in it because it's more period to this, and it's not a runner. I don't care about the paint or the electronics in the car at all, as long as it is functional. So it's more old school. It still has the 6-gear transmission in it, if you can see right here. Slipper and all on the side here, where you can adjust the slippage on it. This car, I actually put CV axles in, 3/16 CV axles, so I can run modern wheels on it. The arms on here, the front and rear arms on this car, are aftermarket. These are Andy's front arms. They're a little wider than the stock RC10. It does give it more stability when the cornering. The rear arms are the same configuration, but they are aftermarket from RPM. Now this car has the actual original type of battery cup that goes in it, but I took all of these parts that was on here, the original. I cleaned up a lot of stuff, re-dyed everything, installed the new parts. The shocks are original, 1984 shocks on here. I put them in oven cleaner and ate the anodizing off of the shocks and then polished them up a little bit, so they kind of go with the theme of the car. The chassis was part of a re-release of Associated back in 2014. It was for the 30-year anniversary, and they had a version which was later on that they called the World's Edition. Well, I bought the chassis for the World's Edition in black, the chassis, the nose plate, and the motor mount back here, and then rebuilt the car and did everything in black. I know it isn't out of the box, total period correct. Some of the purists out here that actually like to build these cars and run them and stuff and collect them and all would say, you know, oh no, it's not an original RC10. Well, guess what? I lived it back in the 80s. None of these cars were original out of the box. They've always done something to them one way or another, and really the thing is, you didn't have to do anything to them, but there were a few little things that people like to try on here. So I got the car. Let's see, put it together. I got a nice little carbon fiber chassis protector to go on the bottom of it. Let's see if I can get up here and look at it a little better. There we go. Show it in the camera. All right. It did have one shakedown run that I took that up and down the street just to make sure it was all functional. But this is my shelf queen. This car, and of course the original RC10, I would have to say were the greatest RC cars ever built. It came from the day of when you built your cars. You put everything together. RC racing was like a big social event. Guys would make experimental stuff and build things and take it out to the track there and run it just to see how it worked out. We had a ball back in the day. That was the golden age of RC, was in the 1980s, and if you weren't there, you really missed out, because that was the time to have it. But anyway, as we go along here, this is what the original RC10 is. RC cars, this is what got me into it. Not really the stuff here that you see today where they take it out of the box and they tell you how fast it goes. Well, these cars was back when it was an actual hobby and you built your cars. And you couldn't go wrong with one of these. They were the best thing ever that came out on the market, and I know that there's been other cars that have been improved over the years and all, but this is the granddaddy that started the whole RC revolution. So, with that being said, we will get back into changing our subjects around and talking model cars, and of course, you know, our little diecast of the day. But I just wanted to show these off today right here, and we will cover some different RC cars as we go along. I've had a lot of fun with this. I've been doing this hobby for about 40 years, and I know that technology has kind of passed me by, but the actual enjoyment of the building of it and just the quality and knowing the history of these cars, it made it all worthwhile. And I can't say enough about this car, and we will cover some other ones down the road. Oh, and by the way, I did break out a telemetry unit. Give me a second right here. This is cool. You hook it up. It runs sticking in the car. It does run off of GPS, and it sends an app to your phone. So I just want to tell you that this old RC10 for 41 years old, a 41-year-old car, the way it sits right now, will run 40 miles an hour on the pavement clocked. I have no idea what this one will do, but we're not going to run that one anyway. I know it ain't the fastest car in the world, but for 41 years old, that's not too shabby. So, anyway, this is the start of the RC segments of my little car speed sport hobbies journey. And now you get, this is my, I guess if you want to call it an area of expertise. I'm not an expert by no means. I enjoy this for what it is. We're going to get back into the scale modeling as we go down the road, and believe me guys, I am heavily relying on y'all's information and expertise. I have gone back and started looking at some old videos that y'all have put out on techniques on things, and bravo, you guys are making a masterpiece out of all of these cars that you're building. So I hope one of these days I'll be able to get somewhere along that line, but we're going to practice first. And we will be covering the scale model cars, and we'll be covering some other RCs as we go along. Maybe eventually I'll put out some running videos if you want to see them run, and we'll see what we can do from there. But until then, this is my episode for this week. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Please come on back and see us again some other time. And like I said, y'all be good.